Oyster Bay, Long Island. August 1st, 1907. At the estate of Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States. A giant orb of light is witnessed by dozens of neighbors hovering in the sky for nearly 2 hours.
In 1907, there was a spectacular UFO sighting over Sagamore Hill, one of the residences of President Teddy Roosevelt. Now, Roosevelt at the time was working on a critically important speech. And in this speech, he would set out a strategic vision for the United States to develop a truly modern navy that would propel the United States into the position of a global superpower.
As a part of his vision, Roosevelt wanted to develop Pearl Harbor. It could be said that were it not for Roosevelt realizing that vision for the future of the nation, that American intervention in the First World War might not have been as significant as it was.
So, were the UFOs, were the strange lights over Sagamore Hill, at the same time Theodore Roosevelt was coming up with this vision of a world consortium of nations, are they somehow linked?
Researchers find this incident compelling, not only because it is connected with a U.S. president at a critical moment in history, but also because reports of UFO sightings were incredibly rare at the beginning of the 20th century. After World War II, however, this was no longer the case, and it happened under the watch of the country's 33rd president, Harry S. Truman.
The Truman administration was really the golden years of flying saucers as they were known then. You had Kenneth Arnold sighting, you had Roswell, but then the great incident was the Great Washington Merry-Go-Round, where in 2 weekends in July 1952, Washington, D.C. was overrun with strange objects that were tracked by the radar at National Airport and radar at Andrews Air Force Base.
This is David Brinkley in the radar room at Washington National Airport. On these radar screens last Saturday, they saw something strange and unusual and at the moment unexplainable. It was not an airplane, it was not a cloud, nobody knows what it was.
The second weekend, jets were scrambled, and one pilot called and said, "What should I do?" Meaning, should I fire on them? And the strange objects all of a sudden backed off and disappeared.
When President Truman was questioned about UFO incidents like the Washington, D.C. sightings, he remarkably did not deny the possibility of flying saucers.
Oh, yes, we discussed it at every conference that we had with the military, and they never were able to make me a concrete report on it. There's always things like that going on, flying saucers.
Many researchers point out that it was at this point in history, the dawn of the Cold War, that Truman established a policy of government secrecy that has come to be known as the national security state.
President Truman really sends us down the path to the modern security state with the National Security Act 1947. It created the National Security Council, and it created the Central Intelligence Agency. Truman is responding to what is now the oncoming Cold War, this new conflict that will dominate our global politics for the next 5 decades.
Whatever Truman's motivation for drastically increasing government secrecy, the topic of UFOs was caught in the web.
UFOs were something that people were experiencing. And right at the moment when it appears that that activity is kind of reaching ahead, suddenly we have the creation of the modern national security state. Truman clamps down on the open discussion of such things.
That's a critical moment in history. Truman made a decision that was fateful. And had he gone a different way, it would have changed the entire 20th century.
When we look at the relationship between presidents and UFOs, we can split this into 2 categories. The historic sightings and encounters, Washington, Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt. Say that there's almost a benign element here. It's almost as if the United States is being guided and helped. But then, the development of atomic weapons seemed to be the ultimate game changer.